If you own a 2009 to 2014 Ford Expedition with the 5.4 liter V8, well, I'm going to show you how to replace the spark plugs. What's going on, guys? Greg here, and welcome back to the shop. And today I've got another DIY video for you. We have this 2010 Ford Expedition in here, equipped with the 5.4 liter V8, and it's time to replace the spark plugs. Now, some of you may be looking at this and be like, oh my gosh, the 5.4 Ford motor and the spark plugs, the dreaded ones that break inside the cylinder heads? Well, believe it or not, this is the revised version. Anything from mid-2008 and on, Ford actually redesigned the cylinder heads so this thing runs a standard plug. Regardless though, I'm going to show you guys step by step how to get a new set of spark plugs installed on your 5.4. Now, before we get started, let's go ahead and look at the spark plugs that I have with me today. Now, me personally, anytime I do any tune-up work, I always recommend sticking with the OE factory plugs. That's exactly why today we're going to be installing Ford's Motorcraft SP509 Platinum plugs. Ford recommends these to be replaced every 90,000 miles, and I know that they're going to run great because they were designed for the truck. That's exactly what we're putting back in it. All right, guys, like most jobs, we have to remove a few things before we can access the spark plugs. One of them being this intake tube. That's going to come out first. And there's also two PCV hoses that run across the valve covers inadvertently right over the coil packs as well. Those are going to have to get out of the way. Once that's done, we can actually access the coils and the plugs, and I'll show you how to go from there. All right, next, like I said, this PCV line's got to come out. And there's just a small little plastic tab on here that you just want to pull with your thumb and then gently raise it up. Same back here. It's a little tighter to get to, but same exact process. Just kind of got to feel your way through it. There it goes. All right, guys. Before I remove any of the coil packs within the spark plug wells, there's a lot of just dirt and debris that's built up in here over the years. The last thing that you want is any of that falling inside of the cylinder. So we can take some compressed air, just kind of blow this and clean it up. All right, I'm gonna unplug this injector harness to get that out of the way. And then each coil pack is held by a small 7mm bolt. I'm gonna just very gently do these by hand. Make sure they free up. Now, when taking these coil packs out, I always recommend to grab it with the boot, give it a little bit of a twist, because if you just go ahead and yank it, sometimes you'll pull it out and the boot will separate from the coil. And we're going to inspect this too, and wow, look at that. You still have some of the dielectric grease on there from the factory when this was assembled. That's pretty impressive. This really hasn't been tampered with whatsoever. We'll clean up the boot a little bit, but this thing looks great. Now, before I take the plug out, I'm gonna do the same thing I did before. I'm gonna take a little bit of compressed air because any dirt that's falling in there inside the plug well, I don't want that falling into the engine. Just a little. All right, guys, you're gonna need a 14mm spark plug socket to remove the plugs. Now, I don't have a 14mm plug socket, just a standard 14mm. But the only real difference is that a spark plug socket's gonna have the rubber grommet inside of it to grip the spark plug. We'll use a magnet to get around that. But let's go ahead and put that into the spark plug well. And I highly suggest doing all of this by hand. There she goes. They're a little tight in there. You can hear it. These have been in there for quite some time. So we'll get it relatively loose. Take our magnet, and out she goes. Now, I always recommend when you're doing plugs, inspect your spark plugs to see if there are any issues with them. You can really tell how an engine's running by taking a look at them. This plug looks great. Normal wear and tear. It's a good thing we're replacing them because the electrode looks a little fouled and worn down. But overall, that looks great. It's a good running cylinder. Now, this is my little workaround. If you don't have a spark plug socket, use a powerful magnet. And we're gonna slowly work that new plug in there. Get it gripped on by like a thread. And then thread the new plug in. All right, guys, usually I can just pretty much torque these down by hand. I can judge it pretty well at this point. But if you want to torque these down, just about 10 foot-pounds is perfect. And this is perfectly torqued. All right, guys, with the new plug in, we can then slide our coil pack back in. Usually just give it a nice little push. Make sure it's seated. And then just simply line it up with the hole for the retaining bolt. And that's it. Just gently snug that down. And we have 1 down, 3 more to go. I'm gonna repeat this exact same process for every single plug on this side of the engine, and then we'll move to the other side. All right, guys, the driver's side is done. We can move on to the passenger side. Now, the passenger side spark plug replacement is the exact same process. The only difference is we have some heater core hoses to work around on this side, but that's about it, so let's get it done. Now, this is what I was talking about, these heater core hoses on this side. The last thing I really want to do is, disconnect them, because then that involves bleeding the cooling system out, and it's really not necessary. So we will work around it. Here's where it gets a little tricky. Still looking good. This is a great running engine. Now, if you look at these boots and you see that there's no dielectric grease left, definitely add some, but these have plenty on it, no reason. All right, same as before, we'll push, make sure it's seated. All right, guys, that's the first cylinder done on the passenger side. I'm gonna keep moving forward. Again, pretty much the same process. Just gotta work around these heater hoses that are kind of a pain in the butt, but that's really it. All right, guys, last plug on the entire engine, the back passenger side, and we're almost done. All right, last plug. Still looks good. All right, guys, last thing to do, put the air intake back on and we're done. All right, guys, that's it. That's how easy it is to replace a set of spark plugs on a second-gen 5.4-liter V8 engine in any 2009 to 2014 Ford Expedition. Make sure, if you haven't yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date on all the latest and greatest DIY product reviews and installation videos. And as always, I'm Greg from CARiD.com. I'll see you guys next time.